Hi, I'm Manfred. On Thanksgiving, my parents called me ungrateful, to my face, in front of everyone. But that wasn't the real betrayal. The real betrayal was years in the making. Like how they drained my college fund to bankroll my stepbrother, or how they deleted me from the family montage, like I never existed. I stayed quiet for years, but not anymore. I showed up 38 minutes late, not by accident, on purpose. I figured if I walked in after everyone was already buzzed from wine and carbs, maybe I'd blend into the background and escape the usual charade. I was wrong. The second I stepped inside my father's house, the house I grew up in, the one that looked nothing like it used to, everything paused just long enough for me to feel it. That slight shift in air, the half-second of delayed greetings, eyes flicking toward me and away. People smiled, but their eyes didn't. My stepmother, Marlene, made her way over in heels too high for comfort and arms open too wide. "There she is," she said, all sugar. "We were just talking about you." Liar. I let her hug me, a quick shoulder tap that smelled like department store perfume and control. I spotted Beckett across the room, already holding court with two uncles and a family friend from church. He lifted his whiskey glass in my direction, like I was someone he vaguely remembered from high school. I scanned the room for Sorrel. She was by the kitchen island, laughing. Too loud, too perfect. She looked like she belonged here. I didn't. They'd made a shrine to Thanksgiving. Table settings with golden leaves, personalized place cards, even a pie bar. I bet Marlene paid someone to stage it. Nothing here looked like family, just branding. I moved toward the dining room and caught pieces of conversation that had nothing to do with me. Someone's real estate deal, Beckett's promotion, Harlan's retirement speech at the VFW. Not one person asked me how I was doing, not that I expected them to. Then came the toast. Marlene clinked her wine glass and stood up. "Before we eat," she began, "I just want to say how thankful I am for all of you. This year has been challenging, and yet here we are. Stronger, closer, and more united than ever." My jaw tightened. She turned her gaze toward the long table. "Let's raise a glass to this incredible family, to those who show up, to those who contribute, and yes, even to the ungrateful ones." The table erupted in laughter. I felt the blood rush to my ears. I didn't look at anyone. I didn't have to. I knew exactly who she meant. No one said a word. No one stopped her. They just drank. I didn't touch my glass. Instead, I stared down at the plate in front of me and wished I hadn't come. My father cleared his throat and changed the subject. Classic Harland. Let it pass. Avoid the conflict. Pretend it never happened. "We've got turkey, 3 kinds of stuffing," he said. "Let's dig in." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled, just barely. Half an hour later, over dessert, it got worse. Marlene was 3 glasses deep by then, her tongue looser. "You know," she said to no one in particular, "Maddie's probably at home with her books and her cats when she's not lawyering. Isn't that right, dear?" I bit down on the inside of my cheek. Beckett chimed in, the smirk already in place. "Saving the world one angry email at a time." A few polite chuckles floated around, but mostly the room tensed. Not enough to stop anything, just enough to feel awkward for 5 seconds. Then they moved on. Like they always do. I didn't say a word. That's the thing about this family. They don't stab you in the back. They smile and do it face to face. And when you flinch, you're too sensitive. I took a sip of water, my hand steady even if my chest wasn't. I scanned the room. Every detail of this house had been redone, modernized, sterilized. Not one photo of me on the walls. But Beckett's face was everywhere. Graduations, vacations, a ribbon-cutting ceremony. His success was the family's pride. Mine was an inconvenience. I knew better than to speak up. When I did, it always ended the same way. Harland with that disappointed sigh, Marlene's fake concern, Beckett's smirk, Sorrel's silence. They had their roles, and I was cast as the difficult one, the outsider, the one who couldn't let go. But something shifted tonight. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness. It was silence, sharp, cold, absolute. I didn't belong here. And maybe that wasn't a tragedy. Maybe that was the freedom I'd been avoiding. So I smiled. I lifted my glass, not to them but to myself, and made a silent promise. Never again. I set my glass down with more grace than I felt. They didn't notice. Or maybe they did and chose not to care. Either way, I was done expecting acknowledgement. Harlan cleared his throat and stood, fork tapping gently against his wine glass. Before dessert, he began, the room quieting with trained obedience. I'd like to say a few words. It's Thanksgiving after all. God, here we go. Family is the cornerstone of legacy, he said, staring straight ahead. And legacies, well, they don't build themselves. They require sacrifice, commitment, loyalty. Marlene nodded approvingly beside him, her hands folded in her lap like a smug debutante. We've taken steps recently to ensure that everything we've worked for, everything we've built, will stay in the right hands, he continued. I felt my stomach drop. He didn't say my name. Not once. But I could feel the omission like a slap. He listed Beckett's new business expansion, Sorrel's thriving restaurant, their shared values, and their dedication to the family vision. No mention of the firm I built from scratch. No note of my pro bono work. No sign I'd ever mattered. And those who walk away from the family, he added, shouldn't expect the family to walk with them. Beckett smiled, slow and lazy, like he'd been waiting for this. Sorrel looked down at her plate. No one else flinched. I wanted to scream, wanted someone to say, that's not fair. But no one did. They were all in on it. Just when I thought I'd hit my quota of humiliation for the night, the lights dimmed. We have a little surprise, Marlene trilled, rising. A video tribute, 40 years of family memories. I barely breathed as the screen flickered to life. Photos began to fade in. Harlan in uniform, Marlene pregnant with Sorrel, Beckett in soccer gear. Christmas mornings, beach vacations, dance recitals. But not one image of me. Not one. A full decade vanished, like I never existed in this family at all. And then, briefly, a group photo at a backyard barbecue. There I was, behind everyone else, blurred, unnamed. A decorative extra. A kid at the end of the table whispered, "Who's that lady?" My chest constricted. My hands curled into fists beneath the napkin. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased. It wasn't just neglect. It was precision. A calculated deletion. The lights came back on. Applause filled the room. No one looked at me. They all moved on. I sat frozen, surrounded by smiles that felt like knives. The laughter and chatter returned like I hadn't just watched myself be scrubbed out of my own life. I excused myself from the table. In the bathroom mirror, I saw it. Not sadness. Something colder. Not anger. Something deeper. Recognition. They didn't see me because they didn't want to. Because seeing me meant acknowledging everything they'd done. Everything they'd taken. This wasn't about being left out of a video or a dinner toast. It was about being written out of a family, page by page, until I didn't even qualify as a footnote. When I returned to the table, dessert had been served. Pumpkin pie, whipped cream, perfectly cut slices like everything else in this choreographed charade. No one asked where I'd gone. I picked up my fork and stared at the plate. I didn't taste a thing, because while they laughed and talked and praised each other, I sat in silence with one thought repeating over and over in my head. I'm not one of them anymore. Maybe I never was. I left my plate untouched, excused myself as quietly as I could, and walked down the hall to the guest room, the one they still called the office, though nothing important had ever been worked on in it. I sat on the edge of the futon, heels still on, eyes fixed on the beige carpet. That's when the memories started to bleed in. There was another night, years ago, that felt eerily like this one. My law school graduation. I had walked across that stage alone. Everyone else had rows of cheering parents, siblings holding signs, girlfriends crying behind phone cameras. My chair sat empty. I kept telling myself they must be late, or stuck in traffic, but no, they never came. Later, Marlene told me they had dinner plans for Beckett's birthday. We couldn't miss it. He's only 30 once. That day, I learned exactly where I ranked in this family. Below convenience. The applause from that graduation echoed in my head, as if mocking me, clapping for someone who had no one there to hear it. I opened my purse and pulled out my phone, scrolling without looking, just needing to move. Anything to silence the echo. That's when I saw the email. It had come in months after graduation. From the bank. The college fund my mother had set aside for me, money she worked double shifts to save, was gone. Transferred out, signed off by Harland. I had called him, voice shaking. His response? Beckett had an opportunity. He needed a push. You're smart. You'll figure it out. No apology, no remorse. Just the same dismissive tone he used when I scraped my knee as a kid, and he told me to walk it off. When I told Marlene, she shrugged. What's done is done, sweetheart. Dwelling won't bring the money back. I ended up taking out private loans and working 2 jobs my first year. I kept the emails, the statements, the proof. Not for revenge, at least not back then, but because some part of me needed confirmation that it wasn't all in my head, that it happened, that I wasn't crazy. But I let it go. I convinced myself they made a tough decision for the family. I swallowed the betrayal and buried the rage. Now I saw it clearly. It wasn't one betrayal, it was a pattern. And I had been taught to stay silent so long, I forgot what it felt like to call something what it was. The truth? They stole from me. Not just money, not just a seat at the table. They stole my place, my voice, my belonging. I stood up and caught my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me looked composed, but I could see the cracks behind her eyes. Cracks that had been spidering out for years. I wasn't weak. I had survived without them. Built something from ashes they pretended never existed. And tonight, something shifted for good. They wanted a version of me that played along, smiled, accepted crumbs, and called it love. But I'm not that woman anymore. I opened my encrypted cloud folder, one I hadn't touched in years, and skimmed through the old documents. College fund bank logs, notarized signatures, screenshots of Beckett's startup site from the same month my fund disappeared. I hovered over the contact labeled Delphine. She was the only one in this family who ever treated me like a person. And if anyone still had the guts to speak the truth, it would be her. I tapped her name and typed, "Can we talk tomorrow?" My thumb hovered a second longer than it needed to. Then I hit send. The morning light made everything in my apartment look softer than it really was. I stared at my phone. The silence after that sent message growing heavier by the hour. Then it rang. Sorrel. I hesitated. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail, but some stubborn part of me needed to hear what she had to say. Maybe I wanted to give her one last chance. "Hey," she said, all breezy and false, like she hadn't sat silent through my erasure last night. "Just wanted to check in. How are you feeling after, the big dinner?" I laughed, once, flat. "Is that what we're calling it? Dinner?" A pause. "Look, I know it got weird." "You knew," I said, cutting her off. "Don't pretend you didn't." There was a long silence. Then she sighed. "Yeah, I knew. I've known for a long time." I closed my eyes. That hurt more than I expected. "And you said nothing." "What was I supposed to do, Maddie? Start a war? It wouldn't have changed anything. I just wanted peace." Peace. That word again. "You didn't want peace," I said quietly. "You wanted comfort. There's a difference." She didn't argue, just whispered, "I'm sorry," like it would undo the years of complicity. I ended the call without another word. I wasn't angry. Not really. Just done. Done waiting for people to grow a spine. 2 hours later, I stood in front of Delphine's door. She opened it before I could knock. "You came," she said. No surprise in her voice, just something steady, like she'd been expecting this moment for years. I stepped inside, and her living room felt like a museum of things the rest of the family had tried to forget. Old photos, dusty books, a framed letter in my mother's handwriting. Delphine didn't waste time. "I kept everything," she said, walking to a wooden box beside the bookshelf. "Because I knew one day you'd come looking for the truth." She handed me a folder. Inside, bank transfer receipts, dated 2 weeks before Beckett's launch. Signatures, account numbers, legal documents, and then, my mother's original will. It was right there, clear as daylight. The fund was meant exclusively for my education, not to be touched under any circumstance. I felt the room tilt slightly. "And this?" I asked, holding up a yellowed sheet of lined paper. "Notes," she said. "I wrote them down after conversations with your father, when he started rewriting history." "You never said anything." "You weren't ready," she said, her voice steady. "But now I think you are." I didn't cry. I thought I might. But all I felt was something settling, like truth had weight, and it had just landed in my hands. Back home, I laid everything out on the kitchen table, scanned every page, matched signatures, checked dates. There was no more room for doubt. This wasn't neglect. This was deliberate. They didn't forget me. They removed me. One decision, one story, one erasure at a time. I opened my laptop, pulled up my legal notes, and began building a timeline. Not out of revenge, but to remember. To put the story back together the way it really happened. They wanted peace. I wanted the truth. And for the first time in years, I felt steady. No anxiety, no spiraling, just direction. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened, I'd be the one writing it. 2 mornings later, a courier envelope slid under my apartment door. No knock, no warning. Just silence and pressure, neatly packaged. Inside was a letter from Marlene's legal assistant. The language was polished, professional, like someone trying too hard to sound polite while handing you a knife. "In the interest of maintaining harmony," it read, "Ms. Manfred Renly is invited to voluntarily step away from the family trust and estate planning process. Such a gesture would reflect goodwill and understanding of broader family dynamics." Goodwill, understanding. They always used soft words to dress up sharp things. I read it twice. Then again. Then I printed a copy, pulled out a pen, and signed. Below the line, I added by hand, "I don't want a cent from people who never wanted me." No ceremony, no lawyer, no audience, just truth. I folded it once, slid it into a plain envelope, and left it on my kitchen table. My mind drifted back, uninvited, to a different kind of envelope, one that never came in time. 2 years ago, I was in court when I saw Marlene's name flash on my phone. The text was short. "Your mom had a stroke. We're at St. Vincent's, no urgency, no context." By the time I arrived, the nurses were changing the linens. I never got to say goodbye. A soft-spoken woman in scrubs looked at me and said, "She kept asking if you were on your way." Those words still haunt me. I walked out of that hospital feeling like I'd lost 2 people, my mother and any last illusion I had about what this family was. Later that night, Marlene told me it was just one of those things. She said, "I didn't think it was that serious. You were busy with work. And Harland?" He never brought it up again. Like grief should come with an expiration date. I've forgiven a lot of things in my life, but not that. Never that. Back in the present, I stood by the window, envelope in hand. The city looked calm. Cars humming by, people walking dogs, rain beginning to mist the sidewalks. I held the signed waiver between my fingers. It didn't feel like surrender. It felt like relief. For years, I thought letting go would make me weak. That walking away meant I'd lost. Now I knew better. Staying would have broken me. Leaving saved me. I slipped on my coat, walked 2 blocks to the courthouse mailbox, and dropped it in. No tracking, No return address, just a clean cut. I didn't look back, didn't hesitate. I went home, made tea, sat in silence, and for the first time in years, the silence wasn't hollow. It was mine. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I sat in a small glass-walled office across from my attorney. A legal pad rested between us, filled with notes I'd been adding for years without realizing it. Receipts, dates, patterns. She flipped through the pages I brought, Delphine's documents, my mother's will, and the transfer logs that sealed everything. "This isn't a fight," she said, tapping a page with her pen. "This is a statement." I leaned back. "Then let's make it loud." She didn't smile. Neither did I. Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop and drafted one email, just one. But it would land like a bomb. 2. Every blood relative still breathing. Every in-law who ever fake smiled through a betrayal. Every lawyer and advisor who'd helped bury the truth. Subject: I thought you should see this. Attached were 4 PDFs bank statements with highlighted transfers, a scan of my mother's original will, screenshots of Beckett's company timeline, the guest list for that tribute video where my name never appeared. I didn't add a single sentence of explanation. I hit send, and I walked away. My phone started buzzing within 10 minutes. Cousins, aunts, even a second uncle I hadn't heard from in years. "Is this real? Why didn't you say something sooner?" I always had a feeling. I ignored them all. Harlan didn't respond. Not a text, not a call. Just silence, the same tool he always used when control slipped from his hands. Marlene, on the other hand, didn't disappoint. Her reply was short. "This is a family matter. Please retract. No apology, no concern, just demand, masked as etiquette. The Queen trying to command the room while the ceiling caved in." I didn't answer. Beckett vanished. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive subtweets. Total blackout, which meant he was scared. Good. By nightfall, I'd shut off my phone and poured myself a glass of red wine. I stood by my window, watching headlights blur across the wet street. Not because I was worried, because I knew exactly what was coming next. At my lawyer's suggestion, we began preparing a formal complaint. Not because I wanted to sue, not because I wanted the money, because sunlight is the best disinfectant, and this rot had spread far enough. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. And this? This was only the first strike. It started with whispers. A partner at a firm I used to clerk for reached out. Casual tone, not casual content. "Hey, Maddie. Heard you've stirred the pot a bit lately. Beckett's been calling around. Says you're going through something. Says you're making things up." I didn't blink. I didn't even blink. "He said what exactly?" I asked calmly. "That you're unwell, carrying family baggage, that this is some kind of breakdown." I laughed. Quiet, dry. "He's trying to paint me as unstable?" "Yeah," he said. "He's shopping the narrative." I thanked him and hung up. Classic Beckett. If you can't bury the truth, discredit the person who speaks it. He was calling favors, leveraging connections, spinning lies. What he didn't realize was that I'd walked through fire to get here, and I wasn't stepping back just because he threw smoke. I called Delphine. She answered on the first ring. "He's trying to smear me," I said. "He's scared." "He should be," she replied. "I was hoping you'd call. There's something else." 10 minutes later, she forwarded me a file I hadn't seen in years, because she'd never sent it. It was a scan of a formal HR complaint from my first job out of law school. I had forgotten about it, or maybe I'd forced myself to. Back then, I thought it was paranoia. I thought I was imagining things, a missing draft, a leaked pitch. The timing had been too perfect, but I couldn't prove anything. Until now. Delphine had saved everything. Email headers, screenshots. Even the log showing Beckett had logged into my personal computer using a remote access app I'd stupidly left open. All while he was helping me set up my home Wi-Fi during a holiday weekend. He had stolen my ideas and pitched them as his own to a competing firm. And it had nearly tanked my career. Delphine's voice cracked slightly. Your father made me promise not to tell you, said it would only make things worse. I regret listening to him. I thanked her. But I didn't call my lawyer. I called a journalist. A woman I knew, who had built her career on stories just like this. Truth wrapped in betrayal. Scandal sitting beneath silk ties and trust funds. She didn't ask for proof. She just said, send everything. By morning, the headline was already making its rounds. Finance exec accused of corporate theft. Source alleges family cover-up. Within hours, Beckett's firm went into panic mode. Clients started pulling contracts. His face vanished from the company website. His Instagram went private. Harlan tried calling. Twice. I let it ring. Marlene left a voicemail that was so on-brand, I almost laughed. You've humiliated us. I hope you're happy. This family supported you, and this is how you repay us? Supported me? They couldn't even spell my name right on birthday cards. I sat in my office reading emails from strangers. One aunt finally cracked. I always knew something was wrong. I should have said something. Too late. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. Beckett could spin stories, but this wasn't a courtroom. This was the court of public opinion, and he'd just lost his jury. That night, I got a message from a former intern. She was fresh out of law school when she worked under me. Quiet, brilliant, overlooked in all the ways I'd been once. Her message read, Thank you. People like you make room for people like me. I didn't smile. Not really. But something inside me settled. Just a little. They thought I'd set fire to the house. I hadn't even raised my voice yet. The next morning, I walked into the county clerk's office with a folder under my arm and history in my hands. The complaint was already prepared. Typed, formatted, and reviewed line by line. Misuse of trust funds, forgery of consent, breach of fiduciary duty. 3 names sat at the top. Harlan Renly, Marlene Renly, Beckett Renly. Attached were everything they thought I'd never find. Notarized bank records, authorization forms with mismatched signatures, and Delphine's signed affidavit verifying the original terms of my mother's will. By noon, the documents were public record, and by 4 p.m., they were accessible to anyone with a Wi-Fi connection and a reason to look. I gave them the truth. What the world did with it wasn't my problem. By evening, Beckett's LinkedIn was gone. His firm had issued a vague statement about a temporary suspension pending internal review, but I already knew what that meant. Harlan's name disappeared from the Veterans Foundation's website. A line added quietly below the board list. Pending ethics investigation. Marlene canceled her beloved charity gala. Out of respect for privacy, the statement said. Right. Sorrel texted me late that night. I didn't know it would go this far. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. You never asked how far it already went for me. She didn't write back. Harlan, though, he finally did. The subject line of his email, You're no longer welcome in this family. There it was, the last brick in the wall they'd spent decades building between us, now handed to me like a souvenir. I opened a new draft. Typed, paused, deleted. Typed again. And then I didn't send it. Instead, I wrote it out on a notepad and read it to myself. You erased me. Now I'm just finishing the job you started. I closed the notebook and turned off my phone. There was nothing left to say to them. No more defense. No more proof. Just distance. The real kind. I sat in my office as the sun dropped behind the city skyline, gold leaking through the blinds. The news sites were still spinning. Articles, reposts, speculation. But inside, everything was still. Not hollow, not numb. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after you've told the truth loud enough to be heard, and no longer care who believes it. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner at my place. Nothing fancy. Just roast chicken, roasted carrots, and a bottle of wine I didn't pick for the label. Delphine came early with apple pie and her quiet, comforting presence. One of my interns showed up with her girlfriend and nervous laughter, unsure if they were overdressed or underexperienced. A friend from my running group brought garlic bread and stories that didn't involve lawsuits or betrayals. We sat around my kitchen table, small, scratched, real. No place cards, no veiled jabs, no toasts pretending to be compliments. We passed food. We talked about books, terrible movies, inside jokes. There was no pecking order, no power plays, just people, just connection. After dessert, Delphine helped me rinse dishes. She didn't say much, but she didn't have to. Her eyes were steady, proud. The next morning, I drove alone to a quiet cemetery on the edge of town. I brought no flowers, just a letter. I sat at my mother's grave and read it aloud, even though I wasn't sure I believed in any version of the afterlife. I did it, Mom. I kept my spine. I kept your name clean. I'm not in their house anymore. I'm not under their thumb. The wind moved the leaves around my boots. I folded the letter and tucked it beneath the stone vase, weighted with a small rock. I didn't cry. I just breathed. And then I left. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. I didn't need to listen. I saw the name before I deleted it. Marlene. I pressed play anyway, just long enough to catch the tone. You got what you wanted. We lost everything. I hope you're proud. I stopped it. Deleted it. That wasn't pride she heard in my silence. It was peace. They thought I wanted to take something from them. But the truth was simpler. I just needed to get myself back. That night, I sat in bed with a cup of tea and a quiet house. I looked around at the space I'd built. Not perfect, not pristine, but mine. I thought about everything they took, and then everything I reclaimed. Some of the wounds would never heal clean. That's not how it works. But they didn't have to. I didn't need closure to move forward. I just needed clarity. I wouldn't fill the empty places with people who only showed up to take. I chose solitude over illusion, truth over tolerance, peace over pretending. I chose me. They called me ungrateful, but I'm more grateful than ever. Grateful that I finally walked away. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I spent years trying to earn a place at a table that was never built for me. Tried to prove my worth to people who had already decided who I was. But here's what I've learned. Peace is not given. You create it. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect, truth, and safety. And healing doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means release. If you're carrying weight that doesn't belong to you, let this be your permission to set it down. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to rewrite your own story. And you don't need anyone's approval to start. So now I'll turn it to you. Have you ever had to walk away from a version of family to find yourself? Do you believe silence keeps peace, or just prolongs harm? If this story hit close to home, or helped you see something more clearly, drop a 1 in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. If you didn't connect with it, that's okay too. Tell me why. I read everything. And if you're still here, still listening, don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories that speak truth, stir hearts, and remind us we're not alone. Until next time, take care of yourself like someone you love.
She was like a younger, ostentatious female boss to me. She was caught in a sudden shower, and I saw her real face. She looks up at me and asks provocatively, "Do you want to see more?" I find myself holding my breath. "Do you want to come to my place?" When she blurted these words out, her response was, "I'm Michael Collins, and this year I turned 28. Please be patient with me while I briefly discuss my upbringing and life's journey. I have it all from birth." Oh, that one. Would be the admiring response from everyone if I mentioned the name of the company I've worked for. I was born the son of the company's president. My parents adored me without showing any preference, despite the fact that I was the second son. By the time I completed primary school, it had already been settled that my older brother would inherit my father's company. I had to choose my own route then. My parents shared a strong commitment to education. Fortunately, I did better in my studies than the majority of my classmates, so I didn't detest it. About the time I was in high school, I came to the realization that I was inherently smart, perhaps just like my father. A gift I never took for granted despite being born with. I worked hard to live up to my parents' expectations. A part of me thought I was just a little bit superior to my brother. Despite his kindness, I saw him as just another male. His benevolence was the only thing that set him apart. That's a big deal, my mother observed, but I wasn't happy with my brother, the one who carried all the burdens of our parents and grandparents and was expected to take over the business despite my superior ability. I must have been a prickly, conceited man back then. Now that I think about it, it was awkward. I consider it a youthful mistake. I sincerely hoped that one day my parents would see my brilliance and replace their hair. But that day never materialized. After graduating from university, I wasn't too excited about job seeking because I had such bad intentions. Nevertheless, over 10 companies, including my top pick, sent me job offers. I was set to make my first move as a working adult, even though I was still not happy about the inheritance issue. That's when I had my first failure in life. My initial choice of employer was a well-known advertising agency. There were a lot of wealthy kids like myself when I joined. I, the person who was always the center of attention, was swiftly forgotten. The strange feeling of not being the center of attention unsettled me. I started to feel more and more nervous that I would not be able to control the scenario the way I had imagined. My natural haughtiness got in the way, and I disregarded the advice of my colleagues, making a grave error. Less than half a year passed before I made a fatal error. I can handle everything on my own, I reasoned. It was an error brought about by my conceited notion. I just stared blankly as my boss apologizing to clients and my coworkers frantically covering for me. That was when I was shattered. The following day, I turned in my resignation. I never returned to work. I no longer wanted to socialize or meet new people who were aware of my existence. My anxious parents made arrangements for me to live in an apartment separately from our family house. I was evicted from my home and sought safety in an apartment that was made available to me. I started going outside after half a year, but I wasn't in the mood to look for a work. I had no job. I made it a daily goal to live a lazy life. I made the decision to live a life that totally rejected the person I used to be. I lived like this for a couple of years. I'd attribute my ability to reintegrate into society to a string of fortuitous little incidents. Movies were my only source of enjoyment throughout this period. My apartment was close to an art house movie theater. They screened foreign films, including some relatively obscure ones. At the conclusion of the year, they also screened all-night films in this little theater. It was a fine art house theater with strong ties to the neighborhood. One day, while purchasing a ticket as normal, I noticed an employment poster at the front desk. "Are you hiring staff?" As soon as I had my ticket, I inquired. I was informed that they had an unexpected vacancy and were hiring immediately. I was unaware of the kind of work that art house cinemas did at the time. When they said, "If you like movies, it's a fun job," I became interested right away. Applying for the job was my decision. My resume was brought the following day. I spoke with the manager of the theater right away, and I was hired right away. I remember being a little afraid, but everything went so well. In case it turned out to be a really severe firm, I was concerned about what to do. The day after the interview was when I was supposed to start work when I got back to my apartment. I was apprehensive about the nature of the work. It appeared like my job was just sales and publicity on the first day. Creating leaflets and posters, as well as displays within the theater and outdoors, were all part of the publicity activity. Sales comprised buying and promoting the movies that were going to be exhibited. Each member of the small crew was responsible for several responsibilities. "Hello, this is Michael Collins." I lowered my head and said "nice to meet you" to my supervisor, a girl who had a doll-like appearance. She actually did look like a small girl, Yet I suppose I should label her a woman still. Her age, she was 5 years younger than me, surprised me once more. The manager of the movie theater confided in me that she was a part-time employee and had dropped out of high school. She appeared to have started working here after being asked whether she would like to work full-time after working many part-time jobs. After then, her efforts were reported to be enormous. They added that all the movies she bought were hits and that she had good taste at first. She is now a well-known great buyer in the business. My training was under her and the cinema manager's supervision. I obtained a younger boss in this way. With a younger girl as my employer, a week flew by. During that time, I soon learned about her powers. My acquired talents from my time as a student were useless. Every day, I would mentally torture myself over my incapacity. The manager of the movie theater advised, "Take your time to learn." However, I was proud to be an older guy and a man. My zeal ultimately turned into a wheel that invited failure. Her nickname for me was Junker each time it occurred. Junker quickly became my alias. I understood she was referring to me in a loving manner, so it wasn't sarcasm. However, being referred to as a Junker was also an embarrassment to me because I had been succeeding handily. One day, I'll exact my revenge, I said to myself. This sensation would encourage my next error. Claire, my supervisor, is a doll-like beauty. Her white complexion and petite stature give her a delicate overall appearance. But over the past week, I've come to understand her strong inner nature all too well. In general, everyone at this place of employment is very eccentric. Frequently, the discussions held here border on sarcasm. I honestly believed at first that I had chosen the wrong job. But after I'd watched everyone for a bit, I became aware of how foolish my assumptions had been. Everyone is genuinely dedicated to their profession, and what may seem like hurtful jokes isn't meant to be taken that way. Arguments may arise as a result, but they will only last so long. No one participates in conversations that flatly contradict the views of others. They listened to my views even as a novice and offered suggestions with a hint of humor. In an environment where there's no need to put on a front of being well-versed in everything, employees seem to grow at a different rate. "Michael, had you finished ordering the flyers?" Claire gave me directions the moment she got back from the client meeting. "Everything is well. The submission has been completed." Claire responded, "Not bad, for a Junker," and set a gift on my desk, a convenience store cafe latte. She must have recalled that I only ever drink this while we're on a call outside. There were voices of discontent from the other desks. "Why don't we get anything?" "Stop acting like a baby. Proceed to purchase it on your own." Claire is tenacious even when everyone else is older. She is practically the most powerful person here because she is just as severe with the theater manager. The theater manager laughs it off, adding, "That's just how it is with newbies, even though I feel a little privileged. I can't let people younger than me spoil me all the time." I made a promise to myself as I sipped my cafe coffee. One aspect of my work is sales. Claire was with me when I had an outside sales job one day. I was a little anxious because this was my first time going out with Claire, even though I had gone out a few times with the theater manager. We went to a few ticket offices and bookstores so that I could get used to traveling alone in the future. The weather was pleasant, and it had been sunny since the morning, but after we had visited approximately 5 locations, the sky began to go darker. "It could pour." She inquired, "Do you have an umbrella?" "I don't usually carry one." Claire threw a worried glance up at the cloudy sky. It dawned on me that I had never seen her hold an umbrella. Just as I was going to inquire as to why she hadn't, a torrential downpour struck, an unexpected deluge. We were unable to take action in the matter. We were caught in the midst of a crosswalk and had to run. We were saturated even though we were able to hide from the rain under a store awning. We were drenched from head to toe in a matter of seconds. Claire made a frustrated clicking sound with her tongue. She removed her damp hair with a napkin, wearing an annoyed expression. The rain appeared to have somewhat smudged her makeup. She kicked my leg angrily and exclaimed, "This sucks." "I'm not the one who made it rain, you know," I said. There was unease in my gaze as I glanced down at Claire. Her face had a distinct quality to it. I believe her makeup was smeared, but something wasn't quite right. Upon thorough observation, I discovered the source of the discomfort. "Ugh, Claire, did you have beauty marks under your eye?" Usually, she needs to cover them up with concealer or foundation. Her left eye had 3 lines of beauty marks. I got a slight thrill, like though I had just uncovered a secret about Miller. "Want to see more?" As she glanced up at me and spoke, my heart skipped a beat. It was quite seductive. These suddenly visible beauty marks had me completely enamored. I know full well that I always had a fascination for beauty marks. I involuntarily leaned in closer to Claire and gave her a downward glance. "Would you like to visit my home? This is not far from it." Claire's face flushed crimson red at what I said. I also began to experience some embarrassment. I'd attempted to defuse the situation, but before I could speak, I was quickly kicked in the shin. "Sorry." "Hey, why did you do that?" "Cease talking. What a yunker you are." Claire spat out these furious words, stopped talking nonsense, and hurried off, leaving me crouched in misery. She would be drenched when she arrived home because the rain hadn't stopped. I'm hoping she avoids getting a cold. I became concerned. Claire had evidently gone straight home and wasn't back at the office the next morning when I returned to the movie theater. Claire had a somewhat icy attitude. She was consciously staying away from me. Her welcomes were a little forced, and she refused to look at me. She delegated duties to other seniors even when I attempted to talk about it. I was being methodically barred from her domain. I was being questioned by other staff members. "Hey, what did you do to her?" Things became awkward as a result. I managed to catch up with Claire during the lunch break, but she refused to acknowledge me. I approached Claire in a corridor nook, hidden from other employees' view. "Why are you avoiding me?" "I'm not trying to avoid you." She stared up at me. "You're just imagining things, yunker," and I couldn't help but think back to what had transpired the day before. The 3 hidden beauty marks resurfaced when I gave Claire's left eye a gentle thumb massage. Unaffected by my touch, she gave me a sneer in return. My recollection began to reel backwards. These beauty marks were not new to me. This occurred during my time as a college student. I was conceited and unlikable then. I believed I was infallible and couldn't fathom failing. My social club and my studies felt like fun, and I wasted a lot of time there. Our club frequently went to this bar, which was decorated in the Italian style and was quite posh, ideal for courting women. We were using a mixer that day. 4 girls and 3 friends. I believe a majority of the girls showed interest in me. When my friend saw it, he became irritated. I believe he would be better off improving himself if he was going to become irritated, but he didn't seem to be that kind of person. To make matters worse, he began flirting with the young waiter who carried our lunch. The girl, who appeared to be in her high school years, was obviously uncomfortable and blushing. She had multiple piercings and pixie-cut hair that had been dyed silver. Because of the way she looked, I assumed that she could be a little rebellious. I thought she could resist the flirting, but I quickly learned that looks can be deceiving. She was unable to correct the customer too severely because she was truly upset. It didn't seem like she had the experience needed to handle things well. Seeing this, I gave the doll-like beauty sitting next to me a little signal with my eyes to hold on for a while. I had been trying to win her over. "Hey, that's enough. You see she's upset, don't you?" My companion was leaning toward the waitress when I reached out and grabbed him by the collar. I was able to instruct the waitress to go ahead and leave while he was thrashing around. "You've gone too far, dude." I laughed and diffused the tension by giving my pal a shoulder pat. I saw the waitress bowing to me repeatedly from behind the counter. 3 little moles were visible beneath her eyes. Yes, it is correct. I remember now. Wait, the waitress from that Italian bar. Claire snapped her tongue sharply at my cry. Before I graduated, I had gone to that bar a lot. I must have seen that expression innumerable times. Aren't you going to marry that doll-like girl? Claire asked without warning. She must be referring to my college girlfriend, who had a striking resemblance to Claire. As I gave it some thinking, I had the epiphany. It's unbelievable. Claire, I may be misinterpreting, but is that costume a cosplay? I moaned as soon as I felt a stinging pain in my chin. Claire had given me a headbutt that had struck my chin. The pain made me crouch on the spot, and Claire stood triumphantly above me. Select your words wisely, young lady, she brashly exclaimed, glancing down at me and clicking her tongue as she turned to leave. It sounded to me like someone said, "Thanks for back then." "Cinema manager, I have something to ask you," I yelled as I stormed into the movie theater manager's office. The manager of the movie theater smiled and remarked, "Oh, you know now." He told me that the reason he hired me was because Claire asked him to. It seems that she begged him to hire me since, although I had assisted her in the past as her first love, I was now unemployed and having difficulties. It seems like they coordinated the employment advertisements with my ticket purchase. Every employee at this art house cinema has performed a role in me. Claire tried to dress like the girl I was dating at the time since she recalled me. She clarified that while it wasn't quite cosplay, it was close. The manager of the movie theater chuckled as he informed me that Claire had promised them all to keep her appearance alteration and everything else a secret. Claire had done all the organizing. How twisted, and yet, I felt, how charming she was. Claire had returned to the girl I knew the day after. Her black hair appears to have been a wig. If she'd shown up looking like this for our reunion, slim black leggings, a white t-shirt, and a very short haircut with plenty of piercings, I would have known it was Claire. Claire pretended as if nothing had happened, totally back to her previous self. While she was eating a croissant at her desk over lunch, I questioned her softly. "So, I heard I was your first love. Have you ever found me attractive?" Claire clicked her tongue and shot me a cold look. She then averted her gaze and declared, "I hate you now." Her less than sweet remark took me by surprise, and I found myself saying, "What?" Then Claire turned to face me, a naughty smirk on her face. "You're a real yunker, you know." Her lips turned a little crimson. "Well, I suppose I had better stop being a yunker before then. After I do, will you kindly reconsider?" I was petting Claire's head when I felt a headbutt strike my side. I stayed stooped, groaning, and contorted in agony. As she left the office, she added, "You're so cheeky for a yunker," before turning around. "I guess I can wait, though." She added some words in a tiny voice, but I didn't miss them. It seemed so far off that day she would be standing next to me in a wedding gown. So, what were your thoughts? Having a channel subscription inspires me to produce more stuff. I'll see you in the upcoming video. Hey, newbie. Would you please stay on task? Never consider visiting Guam for a vacation. I found myself changing occupations after turning 50 for personal reasons. On the work trip to Guam organized by my new employer, nevertheless, I discovered that I was the only one without a boarding permit. It appears like a younger coworker set this up. It seems that this young staff member regards me as just another member of the rank and file. It is logical. He wouldn't pull off such a prank if he knew better. He wouldn't realize it may lose him his job. John Smith is my name. As I approach 50, I am a man who had to change occupations at this age. I have had a really demanding first week at work, what with moving and handling a ton of paperwork. It's been almost a month since then. My daily life is starting to stabilize as I become adjusted to my new work, home, and surroundings. Even though they are not very noteworthy, the last few days have brought about a number of events at work. It's been a terrific kind of challenge for me, the new man. Overall, I'm not too unhappy with my new existence. My seniors who are teaching me the ropes are all younger, which may have something to do with my age at the time of this career move. There is a lot of fresh talent at work. Many of them trust me and recognize my abilities. In an effort to keep up with them, I've expanded on my prior professional expertise to do worthwhile tasks. However, a gloomy shadow is hanging over my life. Brandon is the department manager at my new employment, and he is my immediate management. He's a seasoned worker, only 32, having completed his studies at a private university of distinction and rising to the position of department manager. It appears that he is proud of his quick ascent and has it in for me. He is hesitant to approve different applications because I joined the company at the age of 50 as a normal employee, and he is constantly picky about document approvals. Nevertheless, he consistently gives me a very low rating, as if an old hand like me is worthless, and he doesn't seem to like me at all. It casts major doubt on whether he is as knowledgeable or capable as his title would imply. He has an obnoxious attitude and is easily enraged by anything that doesn't suit him. When things don't go his way, he probably doesn't enjoy it. It's not difficult to surmise that this behavior is being driven by his excessive pride. He is a self-centered individual who assigns his subordinates unpleasant chores. He is said to be the greatest in the business at grabbing credit for other people's work. I had heard gossip about him previously, but it appears that he has been acting worse lately, most likely as a result of an elderly newbie that he feels he can bully. I could as well call myself manager because of the amount and type of work I have on my plate. What exactly is the management doing, though? It aggravates me. He's focused on his phone instead of paperwork or a computer screen. Brandon, what precisely are you doing on your phone? Even when employees subtly criticize him, he simply responds, "Quiet, I'm doing research," showing no signs of changing. One time, I happened to glance at his phone screen, which had an animation of enormous robots engaged in combat. This is not an animation or screenwriting company. It has nothing to do with the robot industry. Not just me, but a few other employees are furiously steaming within over his alleged research. It should come as no surprise that his subordinates, including me, are being overworked at this rate. Almost every day, I find myself working extra hours, and I'm beginning to miss seeing the sunset. However, the manager consistently departs on time. Being punctual is a good thing in and of itself. In fact, it should be promoted. But things aren't the same with Brandon. With all the work he does in the workplace, he might as well be taking the day off at home. All right, I'm leaving. Ensure that you manage everything, particularly yourself as the novice. It appears that he will be departing early today, as it is already 6:00 p.m. He yells my name out loud, pointing his index finger in my direction. Normally, I would welcome assistance, but in his situation, it works better without him. "Yeah, all right," I mumble. Neither the other employees nor I attempted to stop him from leaving. Given that he started as a manager at the age of 32, more advancement wouldn't be out of the question if he worked a little harder. I tried to increase our workflow efficiency by working with the senior personnel, excluding the manager, because I could take no more of this. As part of the current paperless trends, we began by minimizing the amount of printed materials. We have been able to reduce the amount of time wasted on filing and document searches. We then stopped holding pointless meetings. It was a complete waste of time to ramble on for an hour about unimportant reports. We stopped it right away and limited it to sending internal emails to every member. With this strategy, we were able to increase our productivity while reducing the amount of overtime we worked. To my amazement, top colleagues thanked me since I was the one who first suggested these efficiencies. However, one individual was not amused by these modifications. It goes without saying that it was Brandon, our manager. He didn't obstruct the efficiency attempts at first, but he turned like a switch and began to object as soon as he realized I was the one behind it. Don't go doing things on your own. I'm sorry, but at this rate, everyone's health is going to suffer. Cease. The goal is to work hard until you are exhausted. He said, don't try to make it easy, even though he wasn't particularly exhausted or busy. I decided to just apologize without retaliating and return to work, because putting up with his abuse was exhausting and a waste of time. I've been at this job for around a month and a half. Fortunately, there was a corporate trip planned that doubled as my welcoming celebration. Family participation was permitted upon request, and the destination was Guam. Would you kindly approve of this, Brandon? This application is for family members to travel with the firm. Oh, all right. All right. Brandon grabbed the papers as soon as I turned them over, as like he was about to pull them out of my hands. At that moment, he was once more staring at his phone, likely annoyed at being interrupted while watching. I'll pass this on from me to the director. Thank you. How the world? Brandon gave me his permission very quickly, which shocked me. Brandon? What? Stop staring and beat it. Okay. That was when he was grinning a little. I drove my wife, Ally, to the meeting place on the day of the work trip. Our plane tickets were intended to be given to us at the airport gate, where we were meant to meet. I wonder how the in-laws are doing, I said to Ally, who was lugging bags in both hands amid the throng of people. People don't realize that my wife Ally is a Guam native who was raised in Nebraska. We got married and met while I was living on Guam because of certain things. They are all right. A little while ago, I received an email. Dad was a ride at the fiesta in the village. He exuded such joy. In Guam, villages often celebrate with fiestas. It's a wonderful celebration that even visitors can participate in, honoring the patron saints. That's excellent. They appear healthy. Sure, we said, discussing our kin while making our way to the entrance. Many of the attendees, including those from our department, had already congregated. Oh, good morning, John. Kay, a senior coworker, sent the greeting. She is a young, promising employee who started with the company the previous year. Happy morning. Is it true that Brandon is managing all of the tickets? Then I'll go collect them. Brandon was in a rest area close to the gate, still deeply absorbed in that cartoon film on his phone. Good morning, Brandon. What exactly? Are you present? What do you mean, you're here? Regretfully, he paused the video and carried on with the same smug expression as when I had sent in the travel request. I don't have tickets for you two. What? Brandon started to smile even more as I scowled. What do you mean by that? With anticipation for revealing her face to her parents, Ally inquired. I asked Brandon the same question as well. It implies exactly what I stated. It is impossible for a slacker and a novice like you to be going. Brandon, that's your own description. I was about to respond, but refrained to avoid making a scene that may jeopardize my future employment with the company. Furthermore, this was a public area. The name of the company needs to be visible someplace, and I didn't want to draw unfavorable attention. It's time to board, sorry. Regretfully, Mr. Novice, return to the office and work quietly, as you were always so slow. As he made his way to the boarding gate, Brandon made fun of Ally and me, leaving us stunned. It was me who had personally recommended visiting Guam during our conversation. I had already taken time off for travel, and the workplace would likely be closed anyhow, as Brandon mentioned. We would unavoidably have to deal with a security firm if we broke in. Yes, doing it alone makes sense. Regardless, I've already purchased some mementos for the family. So let's carry that out. I'll inquire out the availability of tickets for today. For the first time in a long time, I also wanted to visit my in-laws. Not to mention that I had vital business to attend to on the second day of the scheduled company trip. Although Brandon didn't appear to know, I had to depart. I stood in the queue for about 10 minutes before I went up to the cashier. "Excuse me, do you have 2 seats available for today's flight to Guam?" With a straight back and kind expression, the woman said, "Yes, let me check for you," and she began to type on the computer keyboard. She clicked the mouse a few times before turning back to face me. "I appreciate your patience. We can arrange for it, but it will only be in business class. Class of business. That will come at a slightly higher cost. After all, this is a vacation. Let's indulge a little and have a great time. Those seats will work just nicely, yes. I'm grateful." Understood. We were able to secure last-minute tickets to Guam for whatever reason. On the next aircraft, LA and I headed to Guam. Business class was far more comfortable than I had anticipated, with better seats that keep you feeling refreshed even after a long day and more personal space than regular seats. It might have been preferable to cover this out of pocket. "I'm sorry, I need to use the loo real quick." "Sure." It was 1.5 hours after they had left. I had to get up from my seat since I was getting too tired to stay in my chair and enjoy my coffee any longer. I found the loo by following the indications, but it was occupied. I heard something flush after hanging around for a few while. At last, the lock snapped open, revealing a man. "I'm sorry for the wait. Oh, John, is that you?" "What's up, Jack? Is it not?" It was Jack, a less experienced coworker I had before changing jobs. We were both taken aback by the unexpected meeting that took place here. "What brings you here?" "I was on vacation with my family back in Nebraska, and now I'm heading back to Guam for work." "Is that accurate? I'm also on vacation. I intended to see my wife's family. I recently relocated to Nebraska as well." "You're on vacation, I see. My dad told me that you were visiting Guam on a business trip." "Jay, you heard about that." In actuality, Jack is the son of the Guam business owner for whom I previously worked. I got along well with him, and of course, with his father too. My current employer and the head of that company had ties, which is how I was invited to Nebraska. I told Jack what was going on, because there wasn't really anything to hide. "Haha, it sounds like you're in quite the situation." "Come on, it's not funny, really." "I apologize. Who knows what will happen to this so-called manager Brandon, though." "Haha, indeed." Hearing about Brandon made Jack laugh out loud, presumably because he understands why I was called to Nebraska. That is, why I was called to this place. "Hey, how about the get-together? Did you not plan it for the second day of the business trip? So, what should I do? I'm supposed to be on vacation right now because of Brandon." "Well, what to do now? Oops, I came here to use the loo." "Oh, I apologize for keeping you waiting. I'll just take care of business now, and I'll consider this later." Dew's Airport was where the plane landed, still without an answer. I was standing there with Ally and Jack, waiting for our bags to emerge from the conveyor belt, when, "Is that John? Hey. Have you traveled this far on your own dime? Stupid man." Thanks for that. Who knew he was still at the airport? It was really unpleasant today, his typical condescending attitude. "Well, your hotel and meals aren't arranged, so you better take care of it yourself." Having delivered his piece, Brandon returned to the other staff members and burst out laughing. Jack, who was standing close by, was having a hard time not laughing, but it was serious business. Following a half-hour of chatting with Jack and gathering our bags, Ellie's uncle arrived to drive us home. It was time to bid Jack farewell for the time being. "I'll see you later. We should get dinner together, the 4 of us including your wife, if that's what you want." "That seems like a nice idea. What about this evening tomorrow?" "Sure." I gave a final wave before getting into the vehicle. The family house of Ellie was the destination. Family members got together for a garden party in her honor that evening. Even though it had just been a month and a half, Their daughter's cross-border absence made them feel lonely. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were ecstatic to see Ally again. Oh, how tasty. That flavor, that's for sure. Yes, you do have beer in Nebraska. I split a beer with Ellie's brother while the three of them were having a blast. They do, of course, but it's not to my taste. Perhaps because I've spent so much time here. Is that accurate? If you would like, feel free to take some beer from our home. Are you serious? Yes, without a doubt. But be mindful of the amount. If you over the limit, you will be charged. Got it. Finally, as the drinks and chatter flowed, I started to grow tipsy. At every party, it's the greatest time of day, but beautiful moments are interrupted by noise. Huh. A phone call. I removed the phone from my right pocket, and Manager Brandon appeared on the screen. Even though I wasn't feeling it, I responded. Hello, this is John. Hi. How are you doing? Now please proceed to the Elaine Hotel. His voice was so aggressive that I automatically withdrew the phone from my ear. Why? By why? What do you mean? Please come over here. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to decline. Say no. What plans do you have? Did you not make the designation that we wouldn't be joining the trip? Brandon, I'm on vacation now, so please excuse me. Hey. He started to say something more, but I abruptly canceled the call because I didn't want any more hiccups. After that, he gave me numerous more calls. I finally had to configure my phone to refuse his calls since he was so persistent. I was having fun, forgetting everything, when my pocket buzzed once more. I checked the screen as I was ready to disregard it because I remembered that I had blocked Brandon. Oh, the person on exhibit was President Riley. Asher Riley, a friend of the president of the company where Jack works, is the president of the company where I was hired. He had been looking for me because he loved the work I had done in Guam. At 70, he is considering retiring shortly. Hello, this is John. Riley is here. Brandon told me that you are taking a break. I apologize. Ellie and I were left out of the work trip because of a plot by Brandon, even though I was meant to go. Right now, I'm on personal business in Guam. We're hosting a celebration at Ellie's parents' house. I've described all that took place. Is that accurate? I apologize for causing you inconvenience. No, President Riley, nothing that you've done. We'll spend the day at my wife's family's house for the time being. All right, no problem. I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll make sure to attend the networking event. I'll be here waiting. Are you aware of the location and time? Yes, I'm aware. All right, then you have my whole trust for tomorrow. This introduction is crucial. Understood. The call came to an end after a few more pleasantries. Who would have imagined that the president would learn about Brandon's conduct in this way? Ellie and I met Jack and his wife in front of the park the following day. To get to our planned accommodation, we took a taxi. Well, this is impressive. Travelers of all stripes, from superstars and tycoons to the regular Joe, flock to Guam. Everybody has a distinct style. This hotel was sparkling everywhere you looked, as if it were designed for tycoons. Glamorous-looking artwork was casually on show. Everything was beautiful, even the furniture and the way people behaved. We have a dinner reservation here, so it should be a good warm-up for the important networking event. Yes, without a doubt. We have 2 hours till the networking event, so there's enough time to eat in peace and quiet before going to the event's top-floor location. We ate a delicious supper and then rode the lift to the top floor. The meal was delicious and created wonderful memories. It would have been lovely to eat this supper with the department's senior workers. It's about time, huh, John? Yes, even at my age, I'm starting to feel anxious. It is unavoidable. After all, John, you're the next. When the bell chimed, it signaled that we had reached the top floor. There was the sound of important voices buzzing when the doors opened. When we got there, John, Brandon, A man who didn't belong at the posh hotel came running towards us and started screaming. You hang up on me yesterday. How dare you? Brandon's face twisted like the visage of a devil. He was so angry that only half of what he said made sense. I was on vacation, after all. Stop chatting back to me. And why is it the way you think? Is that how you talk to your boss, huh? Brandon continued to yell despite my answers. The other employees were glaring at the excited Brandon without realizing it. I was chewed out because you weren't there. I wonder how you plan to accept accountability if this has an impact on my promotion. Was it Brandon? Why don't you quit creating a scene in this lovely location? At last, Jack ran out of patience. Ha ha. Oh man, that's hilarious. Jack laughed in perfect Nebraskan at Brandon. Cease talking. In any case, who are you? Outsiders ought to keep quiet. Oh my, look at that shouting. Hey, Jack, it's not just the noise. The women are getting intimidated. Shut up, I said. Brandon, the manager, repeatedly stomped his right foot on the ground as soon as Jack opened his mouth. He appeared to be a child having a tantrum about not getting the item he desired. John, pay attention. Even if you were to scuff my route to advancement. Brandon spewed out his complaints and kept poking his index finger in my face. And then it was there. Ah, so here you are, John. From behind Brandon, there came a forceful yet quiet voice. President Riley was the one in question. Brandon suddenly straightened himself and forced a smile, realizing he had been caught in the wrong moment of visibility. Mr. President, good evening. I really apologize for yesterday. No, I should be the one to apologize. Besides, even though it's a holiday, I appreciate you coming here today. President Riley waited a few seconds, not even looking up at the standing Brandon, before speaking again. Next president. What? Upcoming president? Brandon's shoulders grew weaker when he told me this, as did the present president. I was absolutely in shock, not knowing what was going on. Brandon. Yes, sir. Never fear. You'll never get a promotion. President Riley turned to face the venue after saying those few words. He led the four of us into the event. The manager had gone silent, as if all the hullabaloo earlier had been a fake. He was unable to speak. He could only open and close his mouth. The party got underway. One by one came company executives' addresses, followed by the current president's. I could feel my anxiety rising. It's finally time. Yeah, Ellie may have noticed my anxiety because she whispered to me from her seat to my left. I'm hoping she won't mind my terse response. President Riley began his introduction. Ladies and gentlemen of our company, today, all the way here in Guam. But I was too nervous to pay attention. And at last the moment arrived. Therefore, I, Asher Riley, will step down from the presidency and watch over the company as chairman. There were mixed cheers and gasps after that. Chairman Riley spoke again, once it had subsided a little. I've already chosen the person who will succeed me as president. Kindly take the lead, John Smith. Yes, I said in a firm yet respectful tone. I was concerned whether my gait appeared excessively rigid. John, would you kindly speak up? The person handed me the mic. I positioned myself to the right of the chairman, surveying the gathered staff. Good. It appears that they are on board, albeit I did spot one anomaly seated by themselves at a corner table. I talked about the future while focusing forward. Let me begin by introducing myself. John Smith is who I am. I've been granted the privilege of taking President Riley's place as the new CEO. My dedication is to our company's continuous development and expansion. I'm excited to collaborate with each and every one of you. The room erupted in applause. Even I was taken aback. Such a cordial greeting astonished me. A 50-year-old man changed employment just 15 days ago, and now he is the CEO. My original summons from Guam to Nebraska as the heir apparent to the presidency was only known by the upper echelons of the government. I'm grateful, Mr. President. I'm excited to work with you to grow the business. And now, it appeared as though the chairman's speech might go on. Since the outcome of our meeting was different, I unintentionally made a noise. Enough discourse is needed in these trying times, but we don't need those who stand in the way of our advancement and bring the rest of us down. After we return from this trip, I'll be displaying some instructions. So, for now, just take pleasure in the trip. That is all. I bowed to everyone in attendance along with the chairman and headed down the stairs. I watched as Brandon trembled and pressed his right hand on his brow. I had spent the most of my life overseas because of my parents' jobs. I was born and raised in China, where I completed my elementary and middle school education before moving to the U.S. to pursue my higher education. I was hired by a Nebraskan corporation in the United States thanks to my language abilities. I always made excellent sales by taking use of my bilingualism. To increase sales, I was even asked to conduct seminars. A few months ago, that's when Mr. Riley came up to talk to me. The president of Guam is friends with Mr. Asher Riley, the head of the Nebraska firm. He is currently 70 years old, and from what I've heard, he is considering retiring shortly. But the fact that he hadn't yet appointed a successor proved to be a problem for him. It was for this reason that I was suggested to succeed President Riley. Even if I were to be abruptly appointed president, I have little knowledge of the inner workings of the business. In addition, there is a lot of pressure. I stipulated that I would work as a regular employee for a period of 1 to 2 months as a result. This was voluntarily accepted by President Riley, and the employment move was completed with my approval. In retrospect, I think that choice was the right one. That allowed me to identify individuals like Brandon. President Riley called me the night before the social event, and I gave him an update on Brandon. He continued coming up with justifications that worked for him when he called him and inquired as to why I wasn't there. President Riley was furious about this, but Brandon was also upset with me and was attempting to place the blame elsewhere. But there's no justification for reprimanding me. Anyhow, it appears that at that point, he had already made up his mind about what to do with Brandon. In addition to this instance, Brandon has long been the target of grievances from the staff. I also discussed the strange numbers that Brandon had reported with the current chairman. As the new president, I can't ignore it because it's an essential component of the business's revenue. I requested some of the staff members who were still in Nebraska to look into Brandon. Consequently, one piece of misbehavior evidence after another was discovered. It appears that throughout the previous few years, he had been embezzling money. Naturally, Brandon was let go because he kept doing these things. I received the official notice immediately upon my return from my vacation to Guam, as the chairman had informed me. He was the target of statements like pulling everyone's leg and hindering progress. After then, the lawyers were left to handle the situation. He needs to make amends for his actions if he was pilfering business funds, which is a serious offense. The chairman, myself, and the other staff members are not employed by charitable organizations. I've been the president for 6 months now. Reducing overtime and raising productivity are the immediate objectives. I push for the corporation as a whole to adopt the same procedures that I had been using in the department when I initially joined. I also actively promoted remote work and flexible scheduling. My first task as president was to provide a workspace that is comfortable for all employees. The employees have responded well to this system change, and I've been receiving a variety of proposals from them. President Smith, O'Killy came over. What can I do for you? We believed it would be beneficial to use chat for internal communication during our departmental discussion. It's easier to check with and more relaxed. You know chat? Yes, that could be useful. I'll discuss it at the upcoming executive meeting. Many thanks for it. I am depending upon you. I don't want to sit up high, which is why I want a space where I can easily consult at any time or location. I made it a point to always wear a smile on my face and spend as much lunchtime as possible with the staff. It appears to be working well. The company's productivity has increased as a result of finding a good balance between the free working style I learned at the Guam company and the rigorous working attitude I learned at the Nebraska company. The chairman appears happy as he observes the current situation of the business. Now that he is totally at ease, he has left to see the world. He seemed to be thoroughly enjoying his retirement. Jack, who recently became president of Guam, myself, and the chairman lead the monthly web regular meeting, which broadcasts his experiences. We have a nice chuckle, then get to work. I, too, am beginning to anticipate this rhythm. A positive work environment. A workplace with distinct boundaries. A workplace devoid of stress. An office where nobody is made fun of. It's difficult to encapsulate the qualities of a wonderful workplace in a single phrase. But I want to pay attention to what the staff have to say and make every dream a reality. I think that these efforts will benefit the organization, and it is because of this idea that I want to do even more. I'm 35 years old, and my name is Thomas. I currently work for a corporation, a nearby corporation. When I first wanted to go to an industrial college, my parents wouldn't help with the cost of tuition. In order to pay for education, I worked part-time jobs whenever I could and saved money. I eventually succeeded in getting the job I desired. Many of my peers were always having fun and making a lot of noise, and they received financial support from their parents. They must not have ever had to balance working a part-time job and studying for examinations or worry about money. That's what I recall thinking while I saw them. They were nice guys, but all they talked about was females, drinking, darts, and the pretty girls they worked with part-time. I had to work constantly because my meager high school funds were insufficient at the time. Our themes, morals, and financial circumstances differed. Since I was constantly worn out from job and school, I was unable to actually get to know them. But I was in no position to whine about my circumstances. I put in as much effort as I could because I knew I couldn't depend on my parents. My sister and I were just half-siblings, and both of our parents had remarried. Jenna, my sister, was 12 years my junior. She was charming and gorgeous and kind of looked like my stepmother. I loved her, but I didn't feel at home since I felt like I was only half of the family. The awkwardness with my stepmother was lessened, though, because it seemed that my parents would rather live as a couple. We hardly ever saw them because they were usually going out together and returning home late. Even though our parents took care of our fundamental requirements, we didn't communicate much. Perhaps that's why Jenna and I started to become reticent and quiet. As Jenna became older, she spent more time in her room and less time chatting to me. She stopped smiling at home, and although I didn't know her at school, I began to worry about her. I made a concerted effort to converse with her. She was irritated at first, but I persisted. I engaged them in conversation by saying basic things like dinner's ready or welcome back, discussing TV shows and insignificant events that happened during the day. I took care to avoid asking too personal or intrusive questions about things like how school was doing. This was due to the fact that those were questions that some people didn't want asked, particularly those who don't have strong friendships. I think Jenna found me annoying, but at least I wasn't someone she wanted to stay away from entirely. She eventually smiled and began to converse with me. I loved Jenna, but I didn't like our parents. I was glad to see her again. When Jenna turned 12, I was hired. I didn't particularly like my parents, but I could have moved out of the house and lived elsewhere if I had truly wanted to. But I believed that leaving Jenna, who was already going through a challenging adolescence, alone with our uncaring parents, wouldn't be healthy for her mental health. Our parents didn't want to spend any money on us. They were just interested in their personal happiness. We were able to live reasonably comfortably during the low-cost years of elementary and middle school. But when I needed money for activities and tuition in high school, they became more and more antagonistic. They were constantly unhappy, and their mood only grew worse when money was brought up. They would reluctantly hand me the money, but they would always make a sincere face of displeasure and whine about how much it cost. My folks were avid shoppers. Mom almost lived for buying clothes, makeup, and hobbies because she had a sweet taste. Dad liked to party and drink a lot, so he would frequently pass out whenever she went out. Their habits combined with Dad's meager income meant there was never any money left over for us to do our own thing. I asked my high school homeroom teacher and advisor for permission to work part-time on weekends and holidays while I was having a dilemma regarding my future. Usually, they would have advised me to concentrate on my studies and extracurricular activities, but after we had a discussion, it was evident that my parents didn't want to cover anything except tuition and the necessities of life. We'll cover the children's essential living expenses, but we don't see the need for anything more. My father answered without hesitation. They should take care of their own costs now that they are older kids. My professors saw the look on my father's face and knew. The teachers said nothing for a time after my father left the room, then finally said, "Do your best." I began working at a fast food restaurant in the area. It was really taxing to juggle employment and school obligations. Since attending a private school was out of the question, I had to focus on my studies in addition to keeping up my connections. Looking back, I think that being too busy and always tired to think about my shortcomings or lack of friends ended up being a blessing in disguise. I lived fairly well with Jenna in a house with hardly any grown-ups, despite the fact that I was always exhausted. Jenna abruptly told me she had a boyfriend on her 23rd birthday. Jenna had always been quiet and distant, so I was taken aback. She'd apparently been approached by a businessman who frequented her place of employment. It made logical, as Jenna was clearly gorgeous. I felt conflicted, but Jenna remarked, "Thomas, I detest this house. Because you were here, I've been able to get through it thus far, but now I can't get rid of the sensation that I shouldn't return." He asked me to marry him, even though I've only known him for a short while. He knew my circumstances, which is why I know he said it so swiftly. Even though Joshua and I have only been dating for 3 months, I want to marry him. I nearly lost my breath when I realized how short Jenna's relationship with her boyfriend, who we haven't seen yet, was. I might sympathize with her, but she would face difficulties in the road if she marries an unproven man. I said, "Let me meet him first, and then we can decide if you can marry him." Reluctantly, Jenna accepted. She answered, "Well, I'll introduce him to you anyhow." At just 23, Jenna had no prior romantic or professional experience and was attempting to flee with a man she had met 3 months prior. It's dangerous to consider marrying someone before getting to know his character, and Jenna's naivete is likely the reason for this. I do have some experience, albeit not a lot of it. Friends of mine have told me stories of their negative interactions with obnoxious individuals. That's why I had a slight feeling of discomfort about Jenna being married to someone she barely knew. To my dismay, Jenna appeared to be happier than before. She had either smiled or remained expressionless when speaking with me up until this point. But today she appears vibrant and has a serene expression that exudes a pink or light orange glow. I felt a little relieved to see her in that light. He has to be taking good care of Jenna. Anticipating the day I would meet him, I reasoned that if that were the case, everything should be all right. However, my optimism was going to be dashed. Her lover had picked a classy restaurant where they would meet. Jenna was adamant about getting married and disregarded my advice, stating, "Oh, by the way, the meeting is a marriage introduction. Please take care of us as our parents will be there," his parents. As she stated this, she grinned. I was beginning to think that nothing I said would matter when I saw Jenna grin. I was all but done. No, but I would have to strongly object if he turned out to be a bad character. The only one who can keep Jenna safe is me. After Jenna graduated from high school, our parents, who had always been unwilling to raise us, had ceased visiting. My suspicions led me to look through our family registry. Though thankfully our family relationships remained intact, our parents completely stopped visiting. They'd pretty well abandoned us, because Jenna was practically an adult now. Jenna and I were the only ones living together after that. We were no longer a family, even if we were linked by blood. Jenna just appeared resigned upon learning that our parents had moved out and went straight to work hunting for a high-paying part-time job. She ended up working night shifts at a family restaurant while attending college after I insisted she not sell herself short. She was too weak to work as much as she would have liked, so I used my wages to pay for part of our living expenses while she paid for her living expenses and tuition. Later, after her job hunt had not gone smoothly, Jenna made the decision to work her part-time job full-time. She seemed to enjoy it, even if the work atmosphere was challenging compared to an office job where she would have to sit at a desk. Although I was pleased with Jenna's development, I couldn't let some random stranger to take her away. She had grown to regard me as a parent. Jenna and I worked hard for the following 3 days, and before we knew it, the day that had been promised had come. Jenna made fun of my clumsiness in a suit when I showed up to the restaurant 50 minutes early because I was so scared. But her smile seems forced. She had to have been anxious as well. Her lover came from an upscale background. His parents were head nurses at a county hospital and influential figures at an auto parts business. Her lover, too, had secured employment at a prominent corporation in the city. Jenna was quite talkative and obviously frightened. I became even more anxious seeing her like that, and we both tried to talk awkwardly. Her boyfriend and his parents showed up just on schedule. Joshua was his name. He had a sleek, contemporary haircut that gave him the appearance of being extremely well-liked by ladies. He was tall and lean. Certainly, the suit he was wearing was far more elegant and costly than mine. His parents were also dressed immaculately and had serious looks. His father looked hard and unyielding, making him seem distant. His mother gave me a mask-like, blank stare instead of a single grin. I smiled at them, a little nervous, and we all went into the restaurant. His parents regarded me with stern gaze even after we sat down. But Joshua had lovely words to say. "It's good to meet you. I appreciate you being here today. My name is Joshua, and Jenna is my girlfriend. We're thinking about getting married." After I introduced myself, the mood softened. Jenna was obviously nervous because it was her first time meeting his parents. Michael, Joshua's father, then inquired, "What a gorgeous young lady. Your parents also have to be incredibly attractive. Why are you by yourself here today? Are your folks not coming?" Michael arched an eyebrow at me when I stated, somewhat dishonestly, that my parents were too busy at work to visit their daughter frequently. "So you're saying they are so busy they can't even attend this important pre-wedding meeting for their daughter?" Michael asked. "Regardless of how busy they are at work, they ought to make time for this kind of event. How are they going to put work ahead of this? Which type of parents are you raising?" I could not think of anything to reply to what he had said. He was correct. It was peculiar that our parents were unable to attend such a significant occasion. I looked over at Jenna, thinking to myself that there was only so much I could hide. She appeared perplexed and speechless. Joshua attempted to fill in for us. "Well, her parents might not have been able to adjust their schedules. They hold significant positions and travel abroad frequently." Michael, however, inquired, "So will they attend the wedding?" Once more, we were unable to speak. Michael seemed to be picking up on something from our responses. Anger swiftly reddened his face as he asked, "What are you saying? Can't even your parents make it to the wedding? It's as if these parents don't exist." Jenna is reportedly covering her own living bills and education. Are her parents, who are said to be well educated, really not providing her with any money at all? That's one thing if their educational philosophy states that she should manage everything on her own after high school. However, typical parents will, if they are well off, at least cover their child's living expenses so the latter may concentrate on their college coursework. That kind of parental behavior is bad for a girl. We've finished our conversation. A girl with such parents is not needed in our home. It was true that our father treated us with such coldness that it felt as though he had abandoned us. But Jenna and I had put in a lot of effort to succeed on our own. Despite her social discomfort, Jenna has become more and more adept at connecting with others outside of our parents, and as a result, her social skills have improved. She is a decent and caring person as well, even though some of her peers try to ignore them. Jenna is kind and treats them equally when they feel excluded. For example, she would always, and with a grin, invite the student who generally got left out before the teacher had to step in on field trips and group projects. That student was about to become a truant, but she was able to attend class every day because of Jenna's unceasing company and chats. Her teacher told me this, and it brought me to tears. Even though Jenna was frequently depressed at home, she had developed into such a kind girl. She was being ridiculed for circumstances beyond her control. Nevertheless, I had to say something. What are you saying, Michael? Although our parents may not always be involved, they did a good job raising us. Teachers have often complimented Jenna on her sensitivity and kindness. Please don't speak of Jenna that way just because our parents' approach is different from what you expect, I retorted. Oh, so your parents will be attending the wedding, right? Michael then asked. They won't miss the wedding, even if they are currently too busy to get together. I asked you about this earlier, and you didn't respond. Why is it the case? He smiled as though he was having fun. Josh responded, well, you see, her parents are currently involved in a major project overseas and can't easily come back, so it might be difficult for them to attend the wedding. Michael appeared astonished. That is not appropriate. Parents ought to attend their daughter's wedding, despite their hectic schedules. Do you believe you can trick me? Is it true that your parents have given up on you? They have left you alone because of this. If that's not the case, allow me to have a video conversation with them right now. Following Joshua's example, Jenna remarked, our parents are so busy that they hardly ever get time to talk to us. We are unsure of their availability. You're trying to keep us from speaking to your parents because you're not in touch with them. Michael shot back. You believe you can fool us, but we can see right through you. A person without biological parents is not welcome in our family. Am I mistaken? His eyes were penetrating as he looked at me. I knew there was nothing left to trick him with. In addition, I couldn't fathom keeping up a relationship with a family that was so horrible, and I couldn't let Jenna join it. Although our parents may not have been the finest, we are aware that many other children have experienced worse. It was difficult to work part-time and study, but I think I managed my duties far better than those easygoing college students. We took our lives very seriously. It was excessive to have our character evaluated according to how our parents treated us. Given their elevated social standing, Joshua's parents aspired to have the ideal daughter-in-law. His assessment of Jenna's appropriateness as a prospective daughter-in-law was based only on his suspicion that, based on their observations of her parents, she might be mentally ill. It doesn't follow that children are inherently faulty because of their parents. Naturally, having kids might provide unforeseen difficulties. Although having few resources can lead to unhappiness, Joshua's parents were unable to form an accurate judgment of Jenna in such a short period of time. It was time to discipline Michael for his criticism of my sister. Ever since I found out where he worked, I had been grinning to myself. Michael was about to rise, as though he wanted to declare that there was nothing more to talk about. I should have mentioned earlier that I'm the CEO of a corporation, I said to him. I think you work for EC Corp. Isn't that the struggling business that ours is going to buy out? We were just talking about layoffs. To thrive in a modern environment, one must continue to be inventive. You claim not to require my sister. Indeed, such a rigid thinker is not needed in our organization either. Michael hesitated for a moment, looking shocked at what I had said. However, his tone abruptly shifted, and he replied, What? I was ignorant. I apologize profusely for my hurtful statements. I implore you not to fire me. Yes, I was the CEO of a much bigger company, and I worked in the same industry as Michael. I had originally planned to pursue a technical career in mechanical engineering after graduating from college. I attracted the CEO's notice when I joined Company A and worked my way up the corporate ladder. I was appointed the CEO's replacement a few years ago because of his ongoing health problems and lack of children. Compared to Michael's company, Company A is a larger organization with roughly 4,000 workers. Michael's business is not small, but it was nothing in comparison to mine. Following that, I ignored Michael's repeated attempts to appease me, grabbed Jenna's hand, and said, "Let's go." Having in-laws like that, no matter how wonderful they are, will only cause you pain. You deserve a better person, Jenna. And with that, I dragged her out of the shop. My heart hurt when I saw Jenna on the way home, walking slowly and wearing a dejected expression. Her entire life, she had put in a lot of work. She most certainly battled with life's challenges due of our parents. At last, Jenna had discovered someone she could genuinely rely on. I was aware that Joshua appeared to be a kind man, but dealing with his parents in trying circumstances would be too much to bear. This worry prevented me from being able to support their marriage. Jenna was happier than I had ever seen her. I was proud of myself for keeping her safe from those terrible in-laws, but I never wanted to see her like that. After becoming aware of the problems with his parents, Jenna questioned gently, "What should I do now?" Notwithstanding his parents, Joshua was a decent man. I couldn't discover the answer, but maybe she could be with him if she was ready for it. I was limited to saying, "I'm sorry." After Michael's business amalgamated with ours, I made the decision to terminate him. He ended up having to abruptly terminate his professional career since he was walking about thinking he was an elite. According to rumors, he had a poor reputation previously, therefore no other employer would hire him again, and he is currently jobless. There were rumors that he was self-destructive since his family was disintegrating and he had lost his job. Although I felt sad for Joshua, perhaps this would help him get away from his challenging parents. Despite her initial sadness, Jenna never placed the blame on me. But when she stopped communicating with me, I started to get depressed and wondered if she was still harboring any grudges. The marriage had been called off, albeit it was inevitable. Even without my intervention, I think it would have collapsed. It hurt so bad to see Jenna like that. However, Jenna abruptly declared one day, "Thomas, I don't think poorly of you. I apologize for continuously ignoring you and showing you my sad side. He's become just as essential to me as you have, even though I know you've always tried to protect me. I was so depressed over my lack of harmony with his folks. I felt obligated to apologize after observing that you have been experiencing sadness as well. I didn't have many close friends at school, and with parents like ours, I felt hopeless about having any fun in life," she said as I just stared at her. "Thomas, I chatted to you most of the time before I started school. That's why I had a lot of trouble in primary school. Everybody else smiled and conversed with such ease. I was at a loss for what to do because I had become so reliant on you. I was never satisfied with what I got from people. Thus, I was never able to have a meaningful conversation. I was getting more and more tired because I had nowhere to unwind, and my house wasn't a comfy location either. I became known as the silent youngster as my grades increased. I detested that, but I was stuck in that cycle and didn't know how to be more gregarious. Yet you made an effort to support me always. No matter how late you worked, you would always come chat to me, even when I was a high school student and would spend all of my time in my room on my phone. You persisted in wanting me, even after I pushed you away. I found it irritating at first. I felt it was more enjoyable to glance at my phone. You learned to cook by watching your mother prepare modest meals and cooking a lot of veggies for me every day out of concern for my health. You continued to try to chat to me, even when I had nothing to say and was just watching TV. As a result, I gradually picked up conversational skills from others. I was so tired at first that I simply wanted to eat by myself. But as time went on, I began to enjoy conversing with other people. I was overanalyzing it. I realized. I used to feel like I had to talk about what other people loved or about TV series. The topics you discussed were usually straightforward, and it made me feel better to talk about them. That's why I could persevere through tedious schoolwork. Thomas, I sincerely appreciate all that you have done for me. Jenna broke down in tears and expressed her regret for everything. I simply gave her a hug as I had no idea what to say. I could always talk to someone about insignificant topics, but in a situation like this, I was at a loss for words. I felt like a brotherly failure. I spoke to her over and over. Jenna, you'll find someone better. Jenna, someone better. She answered, yes, while sobbing in my arms, without saying anything more. I continued to touch her back. Jenna seems to have healed after a while, at least superficially. She returned to work and appeared content once more. But maybe as a result of what transpired previously, she declines every offer made by clients. Perhaps she finds it difficult to let go of him. I tried everything to keep her safe, but all I could do this time was keep an eye on her. Joshua severed all contact with his parents a few months later, at which point he married Jenna. As much as I worry about certain things, I constantly tell Jenna to let me know if she needs anything. I want to help Jenna as much as I can in case something happens. Even though we are only half siblings, the lack of love from our parents has strengthened our relationship. At least now Jenna had someone who was willing to protect her even if it meant leaving his own parents behind. Joshua and Jenna beamed brighter than I had ever seen them smile as I complimented them. I'll finally be an uncle to a young girl next year. While working hard himself, Joshua has continued to be the helpful partner he appeared to be, lending a hand to Jenna. Every time we saw each other, Jenna's countenance became more serene, letting me know she wasn't in pain. My younger sister was expecting her first child. Their child would be adorable whether she looked like Jenna or Joshua. Even before my niece was born, I saw myself showering her with love and toys. I had already intended to swoon over her. My thoughts were noticed by Jenna, who grinned broadly and added, "Uncle, thanks in advance for everything." Actually, clients have been sending us a lot of emails with complaints lately. It has to do with one of our male employees' services. Do you know who that might be? I believe Will to be the one. His bad attitude, along with the fact that he still hasn't mastered the work, have been brought up by a number of clients. His age, in my opinion, could play a role. I understand. We just cannot continue to hire someone of that caliber. I apologize. Well, as of right now, we'll have to let him go. It could be time for me to take a step back, even though I believe I could continue working after retirement. I recognize. I appreciate everything you've done so far. Thank you very much. Mary got back to me the following day. Will, there's a serious issue. Not a single one of our usual clients is visiting. Daniel is panicking out and wants to know what's going on. So does the manager. How come? Why is this taking place? What might have been the cause? I am Will Wilson. I'm 66 years old. I moved in with my wife after retiring from my job. 3 grandchildren live with us. Our children have moved out. I was a sales representative for a housemaker before I retired. When I was younger, I used to put so much effort into my work that I frequently topped the sales charts. My wife Lisa took care of the kids and home chores. I want to spend time with her now, repaying her for those years of support by doing household chores and playing golf, which is one of our common interests. However, I still feel as though something is lacking. The idea of not having a career anymore, after devoting decades of my life to it, motivated me to work every day. I told my wife about this one day. She agreed with my wish to work right away. It's fantastic. Would you mind trying it again? Will, I enjoy watching you work so hard, she grinned. I'm grateful. Okay, I'll give it another go. I began my job search the day after that, I was concerned about whether or not I could still manage a job at this age, but I quickly discovered an employer that was open to hiring me. This tiny cafe has 2 locations. Their siphon-made coffee is highly regarded, and they take great pride in it. My spouse is a lover of the establishment, and the cakes are also well liked. I believed that, given my background in sales, I could manage a customer service position. Although I'm not big on sweets, I have a strong fondness for coffee. I was eager to test it. My wife was overjoyed, acting as though she had won the job, when I told her that I had been hired. That's fantastic. It sounds thrilling to work in a cafe, as one might assume. You get to dress in a stylish uniform. Hey, you don't actually work here. Compared to me, you appear more excited. Despite our advanced age, we eagerly started our new lives with these kinds of talks. I was anxious on my first day of work. I hadn't felt this anxious before entering the cafe since I was a new employee. I was a little relieved to discover that I still felt these new emotions. I went up to a female who appeared to be a part-time employee as soon as I entered the cafe. "Excuse me, my name is Will, and I'm starting work here today." "Yes, Will, I am aware of you. I work part-time and am Mary Williams. It's good to meet you. You can follow me to the office. Kindly proceed with me." She was happy and kind, and Mary's beaming grin helped to calm my nerves a little. I was shown to a little office after Mary. A computer, folders, documents, and half-empty bottled drinks littered the desk. "Please punch in at the time clock by the entrance upon arrival. Then change into your uniform in the locker room. We'll have the manager here soon, so please have a seat and wait. Please feel free to ask any queries you may have." Mary made me like her even more with her kind grin when she stated this. Soon after, the manager entered the office. "Good morning, Will. I'm excited to start working with you today." I got up quickly and said, "Good morning. I'm excited to collaborate with you as well. I'll be here primarily because I have administrative duties to complete. Our part-time employee, Mary, will enlighten you up a floor. You can ask Daniel anything. He is the floor's team leader and will be here shortly." "Understood." "Well then, please head to the floor and do your best." Feeling a little uneasy, I turned to face the floor and greeted the part-timers who were working. Mary started by going over the menu with me, explaining each item as she went. A man came up to us as she was teaching me, saying, "Hey there, Daniel," in a tired voice. "Well done. Will is here. He begins work today." Mary gave me my introduction. He appeared to be the worker the management had previously indicated. "It's good to meet you. My name is Will. I'm excited to collaborate with you." Daniel said, "Hello," with an instant bewildered expression on his face. "How come? This is how you recruited an elderly man. What use is an elderly man like him expected to have? Please give me a moment." His initial words surprised me so much that I ignored my greeting. How impolite. "Oh please, he's only now getting familiar with the menu. Once he gets the hang of it, he'll be fine," Mary reassured. Her generosity came as a huge comfort to me. "I'll do my best to learn the job, so please bear with me." I grinned once more. "Most likely, you'll simply forget everything. Please do not worry us. This is not a place to retire." Daniel then vanished into the office. I hope you will excuse him. With an uncomfortable smile, Mary said, "Daniel can be really snarky at times." "I see. Together, let us give it our all." "Mary, thank you." I spent some time studying about the menu before being given a lesson on how to brew coffee with a siphon. This was really difficult for me, and no matter how many times I tried, I was never able to get the hang of it and produce decent coffee. It's the distinguishing feature here, though, so I have to get good at it. Mary comforted me, recognizing my fear and saying, "It's okay. Everyone starts by making mistakes. I'm grateful. I suppose I need to practice a lot." Daniel came over with a sneer as I sent back a rueful look. How awful are you at this, old man? We need you to pick things up fast. Practice time is not available. All right, but initially I also made a lot of mistakes. You'll eventually grasp it. You will be fired if you continue to complain and don't brew a good cup of coffee. In the first place, I had no intention of hiring an elderly man. You are not useful. Clearly, Daniel found my advanced age intolerable. I have pride, but there's nothing I can do about my age. A young punk like him can't make me look foolish. I'll disprove him by learning this job as fast as I can. That tenacity gave me the drive to achieve. The manager called me into the office while I was rehearsing. Lunch breaks will be taken in shifts. Okay, Will, you have lunch first. I understand. A feeling of exhaustion overcame me as soon as I sat down in the office chair and took a breath. My legs were quite fatigued, something I had not experienced while working. It's difficult to stand all day. I can't be whining on the first day, please. Since Mary is trying her hardest to teach me, I must also try my hardest. This is what I told myself as I began to eat my wife's prepared lunch. My worried heart and my hungry stomach were both calmed by the comforting taste. I kept practicing preparing coffee in the afternoon after the break. So concluded my exhausting first day working part-time. My wife gave me a troubled look when I arrived home. How did the part-time work go? Are you all right? Yes, I made it through, but it was difficult to stand all day. I have to practice golf on my days off to increase my endurance. Sure, I'll come along, grinned my wife. I've been working the part-time job for 3 months now, and I've become accustomed to it. I can now prepare coffee that is good enough to serve to patrons. Since most of our clients are repeat business, I've begun to recall their names, faces, and customary orders. Many patrons take a seat at the counter. I usually talk to them while using the siphon to make coffee. Having experience in sales, I felt comfortable interacting with clients. Our clientele includes office professionals, students, homemakers, and elders. Speaking with clients over lunch is one of my favorite aspects of my work. Customers now refer to me as Will or Old Will with affection, and some even confide in me about their problems. When I was managing a new customer's table one day, I unintentionally brought the incorrect order. Excuse me, but this isn't what I ordered. I apologize profusely. I will immediately remake it. Kindly give it a moment. Daniel was waiting for me, looking at me angrily, as I quickly took back the incorrect order. What are you doing, old man? Are you going crazy? You will be punished by having to clean the entire floor by yourself. You'll be dismissed if you commit the same error again. I'll let the manager know that everyone is having problems because of your errors. You get it. Daniel and I were the only part-timers working that day because everyone else was off. As promised, Daniel played on his phone, hid in a corner, and did not work during the entire period. When the boss periodically came onto the floor, that's when he feigned to work. I was enraged. Everybody occasionally makes mistakes. Why was this the way I had to be treated? I worked carefully and politely with the customers, determined not to make any more blunders. I made it through the day without making any mistakes. I went to talk to Daniel at closing. I completed all of this without any problems. Could I go for the day? I'll overlook it this once, but I won't do it again. Acting all haughty and powerful when he's not even the manager. Who does he think he is? As I made my way home, I complained to myself. From then on, Daniel would find ways to avoid his responsibilities and put all the work on me when it was just the two of us. You ought to feel appreciative that you can work at your age. Should you cease to be busy, your intellect will get dull. Which is why I'm assigning you tasks. You need to be giving me thanks. The cafe was quiet and had few seats, yet it was difficult to handle the lunch rush on its own. My days got harder and harder because I was overworked, insulted all the time, and stressed out to the point of tardiness. I considered approaching the management, but I was too proud to concede to a less experienced worker. Will, you look so exhausted these days. You don't feel particularly hungry. Are you working a part-time job that is too demanding for you? Your health comes first, so don't overdo it. I'm fine, don't worry. I wanted to be as happy as possible so that my wife wouldn't worry. The manager summoned me over as soon as I got to work one morning. Will, Daniel, I need to talk to you both. Yes, what is it? We've been getting a lot of emails from customers complaining lately. It has to do with one of our male employees' services. Are you able to identify the possible person? Daniel spoke up before I could say anything. I believe Will is the one. I've heard a number of clients bemoan his attitude. I was astounded by what I heard. This was the first I had heard of anything like that. In addition, he continues to make mistakes and still lacks the necessary skills for the position. He has received numerous warnings and instructions, but nothing has changed. His age, in my opinion, is a key consideration. What Daniel was saying shocked me. I tried to be kind to all other customers and liked having daily talks at the counter with my regulars. Why was all of this taking place? That was the one occasion in which I erred. I see. I apologize, but we have to let go of that employee. We had to say goodbye to you for today. I resisted the urge to dispute with the management. Perhaps it was just my conceit, but I felt like I was doing a terrific job. I thought I could continue working even after I retired, but perhaps it's time to officially retire. My self-assurance swiftly evaporated, leaving me speechless. I recognize. I appreciate everything you've done so far. After gathering my items from the locker, I headed over to bid the part-timers farewell. I completed the required tasks, punched my time card one more time, and walked out of the cafe. I started crying on the way home because I felt as though I had lost all faith in life. My wife came to the door to greet me when I arrived home, shocked to see me back so early. What took place? Did you depart ahead of schedule? Do you feel ill at all? I quit. Although I couldn't bring myself to admit it, my observant wife might have figured out what had happened. That being said, I was surprised by her remarks. Thank you for quitting the part-time job. What? Will, I was really concerned about how worn out you seemed to be recently. You didn't have to work as hard for me anymore. From now on, let's relax and enjoy our time together. Yeah, thank you. I felt as though I had left a huge hole in my heart when I uttered that. Mary left me a message on my phone the following day. Will, there's a serious issue. Not a single one of our usual clients is visiting. The manager and Daniel are panicking out and want to know what's going on. What? Why is this taking place? What might have been the cause? You know, we put your parting message on the staff blog yesterday. I believe that everyone chose not to attend after reading it. Several patrons expressed their reluctance to attend in the absence of you. It seems to be the reason no one is attending. I understand. Additionally, it appears that the owner will shortly visit the business. I'm curious as to what's going on because it seems odd. Daniel and the manager are in a panic since no one is coming in, and now the owner has suddenly shown up. Will, is there any other way I can get in touch with you? Yes. I know it sounds difficult, but persevere. I'm grateful. I apologize for troubling you now that you've given up. I simply feel overburdened. It's all right. You are welcome to get in touch at any time. The story Mary told unnerved me. How can I address the regular's absence? However, at this point, I am powerless. I got a call from the manager a few hours later. Ty Will. I apologize for interrupting your day off. Is now a suitable moment to speak? Yes, everything is all right. I apologize, but would you please come to the store right now? What is happening? Has anything occurred? If it's okay, I'd prefer to talk about it with you in person. All right, I'll go over right now. Despite not knowing what was going on, I made the decision to go after hearing what Mary had to say. I ran to the owner again at the door when I got there. Will, a long time has passed. Personally, I just arrived here. It was me who gave you the call. I apologize for the impromptu request. We should speak in the office. Daniel and the manager were waiting for us when we walked into the office. I appreciate you coming, the proprietor replied. They all up and greeted one another. Please take a seat. I got a call from a regular customer, which is why I brought you all here today. When I asked them why Will had departed, they stated they had stopped by after reading his farewell post on the site. Since I was unaware of it, I was shocked and came to learn what had occurred. What's happening? Well, there have been a lot of grievances regarding Will's customer service. We asked him to go because he continued making blunders on top of that. You idiots. Did you do a thorough investigation? Will excelled in sales. I would never expect subpar service from someone like him, and he is one of my friends. I have the best understanding of his character. He is not the kind to receive criticism. Is that accurate? I assumed the owner had just conducted his interview and hired him as normal. In all honesty, the proprietor of the cafe helped me land the job there. My wife and I frequent a golf range where I first met Mo, and his spouse frequent that place as well, and we bonded over our shared love of dining out as a quartet. When I remarked to Mo in passing one day that I wanted to go back to work, he suggested that I try working at his cafe. However, Daniel, the floor manager, stated that Will's customer service never got better, no matter how many times he received coaching. The manager hung his head and grew hushed in his speech. The owner gave Daniel a nasty glare after realizing this. Daniel, what's this all about? All right, Daniel could not talk well enough and stammered. Now, bring one of the temporary employees over. Tell me the truth, please. Move quickly. Yes, I get it. With haste, the manager walked to the floor and came back carrying Mary. Please pardon me. Hi there. Mary looked very nervous as she walked into the office. I apologize for bothering you while you were working, Mary. I have a couple enquiries. Kindly have a seat. Yes. I've heard a lot of negative things spoken about Will's customer service. What are your thoughts about that? Mary's startled eyes grew wide. She responded with confidence, "That's absolutely impossible," which was a sharp contrast to her earlier nervousness. Will has always had good discussions at the counter and is highly well liked by our frequent clients. We younger employees looked up to him as a role model because he was so friendly to new clients as well. Oh, really? Who you believe was the true target of the allegations regarding a male employee? You are able to talk openly. Don't worry, I'll keep you safe. Well, I have witnessed clients chastise Daniel for his subpar service on a few occasions. I understand. Is it accurate to say that Will wasn't very competent at his job? Without a doubt not. Everyone complimented Will's coffee as the best. That's why after he departed, the customers stopped coming because of how well liked he was for both his personality and his coffee. I understand. Mary, I appreciate you telling me. Please feel free to speak up if you have any other reports to make. You are free to share anything with me. I'm grateful. You promised to protect me, therefore I will tell you everything. Daniel would frequently neglect his work and assign all of it to his part-timers. He also called Will an old guy and said he was useless, insulting him. How come? How are you able to say that? Will affirmed what Mary had said. It's accurate what Mary is saying. When it was just the two of us, Daniel would verbally insult me every day and assign all of the labor to me. He even asserted that elderly people should continue working to prevent dementia. You didn't, Daniel. That was intended to be beneficial to you. He tried valiantly to justify himself, but his arguments fell flat. We are all the same age, Daniel, Will, and me. Do you think I'm worthless? The owner grinned mischievously as she peered into Daniel's eyes. Daniel was speechless and froze. Daniel, in addition to filing fraudulent reports, You neglected your work and used foul language towards your employees. We know who the store actually needs, and it's obvious who has to go. Please give it time. Please don't fire me. I apologize sincerely. I'm sorry. Just don't fire me, please. Daniel, saying sorry isn't enough. You are an inherently flawed human being. You don't value customers, you don't respect your elders, and you don't feel like you operate as a team with your coworkers. Someone like that is not necessary in our store. Whatever justifications you offer, you will be fired. You, management, bear responsibility as well. You have to start keeping a closer eye on things at work. Yes, I apologize profusely. The management expressed sincere regret. Daniel was beside him, looking sad and almost crying. I need to ask for a favor now, Will. Please return to the store beginning tomorrow. You are needed here. The customers, Mary, and the other staff members are all anticipating your return. Please, I'm eager to collaborate with you once more. I'm grateful. Thank you very much. I would be delighted to return. Mary gleamed as she heard what I had to say. I went home after the meeting and wrote about my return to the store on the staff blog. Upon arriving at work, my manager requested me to take on a leadership role. Would you please teach the younger employees how to make coffee and how to provide excellent customer service? Of course, please. I would be glad to assist. One by one, familiar faces began entering as I stood at the counter as usual. You returned. Please don't give up once more. Will, I came here only to sip your coffee. That's accurate. I come here every day. Will, simply to talk stupid with you. And Will, I depend on you for career guidance. Without you, I would be lost. Everyone was chatting at once, and there was laughter all over the counter. Upon returning home, I informed my spouse about the kind reception I had from the patrons and my advancement to part-time leader. You truly are a workaholic, but it makes me smile to see how content you are at work. I will continue to support you. Simply look after yourself and try your hardest. That makes me delighted to hear as well. I'm grateful. I had almost given up on life at one time, but I now see that there are those who depend on me. I want to live up to their expectations and continue to witness my wife's and the clients' smiles.